We moved into that house when I was just 6 years old, and looking back, it felt less like a home and more like a massive, breathing entity. It was over a century old, a sprawling, 3-story Victorian-style maze with 10 bedrooms. From the very beginning, a heavy, oppressive energy hung in the air. We all experienced things we couldn't explain. It started with small disturbances. The distinct feeling of the mattress sinking as if someone had just sat on the edge of the bed, or waking up in the dead of night to see a shadowy figure standing in the corner of the room, only for it to slowly dissolve into the darkness. But the most terrifying aspect of living in that house wasn't just what we saw while we were awake. It was what invaded our sleep. The house had a way of synchronizing our nightmares. I remember one specific dream where I was lying in my bed, exactly as I was in reality. With one chilling exception, my bedroom door was wide open. I was terrified of the dark, so my door was always shut tight. As I stared out into the pitch-black hallway, a pale, freakish, ghoul-like face suddenly popped into the doorframe horizontally, like its neck was snapped at a right angle. It let out this horrific, guttural shriek that rattled my teeth. I woke up drenched in sweat. The next morning at breakfast, I told my mom about it. All the color drained from her face. She looked at me in absolute terror and whispered that she had had the exact same dream, down to the open door and the horizontal face. But that wasn't the worst dream I had involving my mother. A few years later, I had a nightmare where I was somehow glued to the ceiling, staring down at my own bed. My mom was standing in the middle of my room. She had this hollow, zombie-like expression on her face, and her body was stiffly rocking back and forth. Suddenly, she snapped her neck up and spotted me on the ceiling. Her dead expression contorted into a look of absolute, unadulterated horror, the most terrifying face I have ever seen. She slowly raised a shaking arm, pointed a bony finger right at me, and began walking forward. I jolted awake in my bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. I was back in my body. But when I looked toward the center of the room, she was still there. My mom was standing in the exact same spot, in the pitch black, rocking back and forth with that possessed look on her face. Panicking, I reached over and slapped the light switch on. The room flooded with light, but she didn't disappear. I just stared at her, frozen in terror, as her figure slowly and seamlessly vanished into thin air. When I nervously brought it up to her the next day, she didn't dismiss it as an overactive imagination. Instead, she started crying. She told me she had been sleepwalking the night before. She remembered waking up standing in the middle of her own bedroom, rocking back and forth, entirely unable to stop herself. As I got older, the activity shifted from psychological terror to physical manipulation. By my late teens, I had claimed the basement as my personal man cave. One night, I was heading up to the second floor to grab something. As I reached the first floor landing, I heard a loud clatter in the kitchen. I walked in to find a heavy coffee mug lying sideways on the floor. It hadn't shattered, which was strange in itself. I just picked it up, placed it securely back on the counter, and went about my business. A few hours later, I was coming up from the basement again to grab a snack. The exact same thing happened. The exact same mug was lying on the floor. I brushed it off, convincing myself it was just a vibration in the old house, and went back downstairs. A couple of hours later, around 2 a.m., I left the basement for the last time to go to sleep. As I walked past the first-floor kitchen, I stopped dead in my tracks. The kitchen was pitch black. We always kept 2 dim lights glowing above the cabinets 24/7, but they had been physically switched off. And echoing through the dark, silent house was the sound of rushing water. Someone had turned the cold water in the kitchen sink on full blast. I turned the water off, thoroughly spooked, and hurried up the stairs to the second floor where my bedroom was. But when I reached the top of the stairs, I heard it again. I walked into the second-floor kitchen. It was identical to the first. Every single light was off, even the always-on night light under the microwave. And the sink's cold water was roaring on full blast. I woke up the whole house. I went door to door, asking if anyone had been up getting a glass of water, or if they were messing with me. Everyone was dead asleep. My family isn't the type to pull pranks. We were all too terrified of the house to ever joke about it. I have dozens of stories just like these from our time in that house, but honestly, just typing this out has brought back that familiar, freezing chill down my spine. We eventually moved out, but a part of me feels like whatever was in that house never really forgot us.